What's up, YouTubers? It's me again, Brian, aka Gamer55551, and I am back with a video review. And for this review, we're going to be taking a look at Spider-Man, the exclusive for the PlayStation, for the PS4, or PlayStation 4 to be exact. And if you're interested in some gameplay footage, I'll have a link in the description and you can check that out as well. Now, up to this point, Spider-Man games have been kind of sort of a hit and miss though. Although there have been occasionally some good ones to be exact. One of the most famous ones, and people still remember as probably the best Spider-Man game out there, was Spider-Man 2, released back in 2004, around the same time that, Sam Raimi's Spider-Man trilogy, Spider-Man 2, came out though. It was definitely a change from in a direction in terms of gameplay mechanics and so forth, which was different than, say, what it was when past Spider-Man games have come out, especially some of the early 3D ones that I think Nerfsoft did, I think for the PlayStation and the N64 days though. After that, it's been kind of a hit and miss though. While there have been some good Spider-Man games, particularly also on the Nintendo DS with Ultimate Spider-Man, which also saw console release on the GameCube, PlayStation 2, and Xbox. Spider-Man 3 was met with mixed reception on consoles, especially the Wii version. Although I applaud by Cursor Vision for building it from the ground up, wasn't exactly great though. The DS version was fun and was one of the few games that actually used the touchscreen that actually was good. Same with Ultimate Spider-Man. Web of Shadow, though, but again, the DS version was fun because it follows sort of a Metroidvania approach. Shattered Dimension was alright though, although I did say that while not perfect, I like the North Spider-Man universe and would love to see a Spider-Man game based off of that one as well. The Amazing Spider-Man ones based off of the Amazing Spider-Man movies that Sony did before they killed off that series after the Amazing Spider-Man 2 didn't do well. First one wasn't bad. It was certainly not up to what Spider-Man 2 was, but certainly good. I never played the second one. I heard some bad things about that one as well. So when I heard that Insomniac was doing a Spider-Man game to be exact, though many expected that Sucker Punch was going to do one though, it got me interested though, and I've been seeing some gameplay footage over the years, and it sort of caught my attention about it. And after investing several hours and several days into this game, I honestly am going to come out and say that this is probably the second best Spider-Man game, or not since Spider-Man 2, since we had a really good Spider-Man game, and this is definitely it, even though there may be a couple little hiccups here and there. So why don't we get started, excuse me, why don't we get started with the pros and cons, and we'll start off first with the pro. First I want to talk about is the gameplay. Basically, Spider-Man on the PS4 follows an approach very similar to how the Batman Arkham series has been. Even though Batman and Spider-Man both have different fighting styles and so forth, you can see the similarity though. You have a button to hit the dodge just at the right moment to avoid an enemy's attack. You have regular attacks. There are certain enemies certainly big bulky enemies cannot be taken down simply as the regular grunts can, so you're going to have to take a different approach, similar to Arkham style. And of course there are some stealth areas as well where you can sneak up and basically, do a takedown of the enemies, either a quiet or a loud takedown to be exact. So even though it's an Arkham style combat though, I definitely like that kind of combat and approach, and I definitely like that they followed that approach in Spider-Man for the PS4. The next one is, of course, the story, and I will say that even though this is not a retelling of the origins of Spider-Man or anything like that, I definitely like the story so far that I've seen in the game, where basically it's Spider-Man is much older now and all that stuff. He's gotten used to his powers and so forth. It also tells the story about this new group, I think, called the Demons, to be exact, which, based on my time with it, they are a bit of a challenge though. But overall, I will say the story is interesting, especially with Norman Osborn being, the mayor of New York City and so forth. So overall, definitely, the story is definitely good though. The next one, and this has sort of been a complaint about 3D Spider-Man games for a while, and that is the camera, when especially when you're indoors. Up to this point, one of the complaints, and this is certainly something that most people who have played Spider-Man games can know about, is that the camera, especially when you're indoors, is not exactly the greatest thing, especially when you're crawling through, like a ventilation shaft and so forth. And while it's far from perfect, the good news is that it's not as big of an issue as it was in the past game. Thank God. I mean, the camera wasn't a problem. I was able to do range from stealth takedown to nailing down combos and so forth. So they handled the camera very, very well. So I will say, thank God they addressed some of the problems with this though. It's far from perfect, and during one battle with Shocker I had, sometimes the camera sort of is in an odd place, but it didn't completely ruin the game or make the game unplayable or anything like that. So I will say camera is not a big issue this time, especially when you're indoors to be exact. And last, but certainly not least, is the open world approach. I just find it's just amazing the way that you could swing around Manhattan Island as Spider-Man and all that stuff, and doing some of the side missions as well. Some of them are fun. Some of them are all right, like doing the lab one with Harry Osborn. Some of them are okay, but the big one, of course, is the combat one, taking down the gangs or the demons that are in the city as well. And there's also like a checklist of stuff in the game, including some collectibles, like from backpacks to sightseeing and so forth. So I definitely like the open world approach that Insomniac took with the PS4 Spider-Man game. Okay, we're going to take a quick break, and when we get back, we're going to get to part 2 of the con. So we'll take a quick break, and we will be right back. Okay, and we are back with part 2 of our video review of Spider-Man for the PlayStation 4. So now that I gave you the pros, why don't we get started with the cons? So we'll start off with the first con. Now, and I mentioned in the first part of my video, of my review of Spider-Man, I talked about how I love the open world approach, and I still stand behind that though. Ranging from swinging across the city as Spider-Man to the whole taking on the bad guys and so forth, and some of the side missions being fun and all. That said though, while I still stand behind that, I can't help but feel to some degree though that you can't escape the fact that there's definitely an Assassin's Creed-ness to their open world, and it's pretty much very similar to how Ubisoft approaches their open world type of games, where basically here you get up to the top of the building to get a view of the certain area, to unlock everything and so forth. In this case is unlocking these certain satellites to basically open up everything in that section of Manhattan and so forth. So you can't help but feel that feels like you're basically playing an Assassin's Creed game type of a game. If there is one bright spot to least to this, is that unlike say past Assassin's Creed game, it doesn't feel like you don't feel like it's a struggle just trying to get to the top to unlock that section or anything like that. Spider-Man does kind of moves fluidly to basically move up a building and so forth. So again, I don't hate the open world approach that they did for Spider-Man, but you can't help but feel that it feels a bit too much like an Assassin's Creed game to a certain degree. The next one I want to talk about is the visuals. Now, before I begin talking about this, I do want to say, for the record though, no, I do not believe in Puddlegate or any of that BS though. I don't buy that argument. I think that argument is ridiculous, and I think some people kind of blew it way out of proportion though, okay? I would like to say that I don't think the visuals are as terrible or as awful as some people have made it claim to be, though. That said, however, while I don't think the visuals are terrible, if I were to compare it to, say, other Sony first-party games like Horizon Zero Dawn or God of War to be exact, or say like other games from Insomniac like, say, Sunset Overdrive, Ratchet Clank, Song of the Deep, I would have to say those games are probably better looking than Spider-Man is, though. I look at Spider-Man, I look at it the same way as I looked at Infamous Second Son, or say Mad Max, or Middle Earth Shadow Mortar, those kinds of visuals, where they're not terrible, but they're not spectacular, no pun intended on that. So that's the same way I look at Spider-Man. It's not a terrible looking game. I don't think the visuals are downgraded or anything, but when compared to other first-party games from Sony or other games from Insomniac games, I have to say those are probably better looking than, say, Spider-Man on the PS4 is. And last but not least, though, I do want to point out that there are some bugs or glitches here and there in the game. While it's nothing that I ran into that made the game crash or break or anything, there are occasions where it does make certain things frustrated. There are times where certain backpacks, or sort of the collectible items, are placed in areas that make it very difficult for Spider-Man to grab and all that stuff. There's one case that was hidden like under a bridge, and I tried to crawl up to that spot, and it, like, Spider-Man couldn't even crawl up there. There was one case where when Spider-Man froze and I couldn't move, and I had to pretty much quit the game and then go back in it, and the game worked just fine and all that stuff. So there are occasional glitches here and there, but so far I haven't run into anything that broke the game or made the game unplayable or anything else like that. So some of it could be because of some of the patches that I downloaded for the game and so forth, but yes, there are some glitches, but nothing that ruins the game entirely. Overall, I did enjoy Spider-Man. I definitely enjoyed the game. The open world approach I like, even though it may have a bit of Assassin's Creed-ness to it, though. The combat's great, the story's fun, and the fact that they fixed the issue with the camera that has plagued past Spider-Man game, or at least not as big of an issue to be exact, is great and all. The game is fun, and it is a quality title. It may not be like some are treating it like the second coming to Jesus, for crying out loud, or it may not be as visually impressive as, say, Horizon Zero Dawn or God of War, but it is still a quality first-party title from Sony, and I think that's a good thing. I'm hoping the game does pretty well. I have a good feeling it will, and here's to hoping that we get a Spider-Man 2 on the PS4 or most likely PS5. If that happens, I would be down if they use, say, something like Venom or Carnage. That would be great as well. But overall, I will say it's a solid first-party title from Sony, though, and I do recommend picking up Spider-Man, though. Speaking of Spider-Man, especially if you've been a fan of, like, say, Spider-Man 2, or if you enjoyed a lot of the first-party games Sony has put out on the PS4 lately. Okay, this concludes this video review of Spider-Man for the PS4. And again, these are my opinion, but what are yours? What are your thoughts about Spider-Man for the PS4? Do you believe it lived up to the hype, or do you think people sort of overhyped this game? Do you like the combat? Do you like the Arkham style combat, though? Do you think the story is enjoyable? Do you think they fixed a lot of the problems that may have plagued past Spider-Man games, though? Do you think the visuals, do you agree with me that the visuals are not spectacular but not terrible? Or the fact that, do you still buy that whole Puddlegate argument or not? Do you agree with what I said in this video? Do you disagree? Do you have a difference of opinion? As always, sound off in the comment section below. Let me know what you think, and I hope you hit that like button. I would appreciate it, and I hope you do subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you do, make sure you hit the bell icon for notifications for any new videos I put out. Also, feel free to share this video if you want to, and feel free to donate to my channel if you'd like. You can do it through PayPal Me or Patreon. Excuse me. Links are in the description of this video. And I will see you again next time when I do another video. Hopefully that will be soon. Until then, from Southern California, I wish you all a good day then. Bye!